Hi, and welcome back to our video series on mythology and folklore. Every Wednesday, we're talking about different figures. I'm trying to understand them and interpret them so I can fit them into my book and my theory on social behavior. It's called Circles, the Myth of Society. If you're interested, there should be a subscribe button on here somewhere. Please, if you're interested, stick around, watch another video, make a comment. I would love to interact, to talk with other people about this stuff because that's the type of nerd that I am. Today, I want to talk about Anansi the spider, or Nancy as he is sometimes called. And I think that he's a really interesting figure. This was a story that my mother would read me all of the books as a kid. My stepdad was very interested in Nancy, as he would call them. And so I always grew up with him as somebody, and he made a lot of sense to me because as a kid that was smaller and weaker and didn't really fit in and got bullied a lot, the trickster who was able to outwit his stronger and bigger opponent, to me was a really encouraging figure. And so, and Nazis, and really like these spiders' tales in general that would loosely come together are found throughout West Africa originally, and Nancy specifically from Ghana. He's often depicted as a few different ways. A lot of the interpretations we see now are as a spider with a man's head, but he's been seen as a few different things, right? I mean, a human with spider legs or spider-like features, or a man with 8 legs, and regardless, he's basically he is the spider. This is his role in this type of folklore story as a bit of a hero, kind of demigod type character. And his name itself is usually seen as being synonymous with wisdom, with being quick of tongue, with speech, with that skill, that ability. He is the master bard, if you will, the master of being able to talk his way out of trouble, the one who's able to work his way out by being clever. And so what we see is interesting. We see him shift and move, and some of his character change based on the environment of his people. Ultimately, like I said, he starts in Ghana, but we see him as a figure move over into the Americas, into Jamaica, and some of these different southern regions as the slave trade brings individuals over to America. And so he actually ends up ultimately becoming the symbol of slave resistance and survival. He's an individual who is basically able to constantly turn the table on the oppressors, on these more powerful individuals who seem to control all of the resources, but he does it through being cunning. He doesn't have the same access, right? I think that's what's interesting as I think back on some of the stories of Anansi doesn't have the stuff the gods does, but he's able to trick them. And this was really the model of behavior that slaves had to use in the Americas and the world to gain any type of upper hands within the power structure that they were held underneath. When you don't have the law on your side, when you don't have access to education, when you don't have access to resources, when your basic dignity and freedoms are taken away, all you're left with is the fact that you can be quicker, more clever. And if you can do that, you can maybe get your way to something better. And Anansi is a symbol of that. We see some other similar characters of folklore. I mean, he definitely fits along the lines of the other trickster gods, right? I mean, he's similar to, in some ways, to Hermes and Loki and all of that, but he's a little bit different. And he is different in that sense that those are all people that had, the other ones are ones that are part of the gods, and they're seen as a bit of a nuisance. But Anansi, like I said, he's on the outside. He's someone that's oppressed in a lot of ways by the gods and has to work his way into having a shot because he's the small spider. I think Briar Rabbit sometimes gets seen as a bit of a similar figure. It's another character in the New World that depicts a smaller, more vulnerable individual that's able to use cunning and intelligence to prevail over larger animals in the jungle, which is representative of power. But Anansi, like I said, to go back to the bard idea, he's the king of stories. You've got to be able to swing a good tale. Love that. You got to keep him engaged. You got to keep him on his toes. You got to sell him. And that's an interesting way to make an offering to a god, right? I mean, there's a lot of gods in the Caribbean system of deities that, you know, you can summon them with liquor or booze. You can get them some treats. You know, you can smoke some things. But if you don't get Anansi interested, if you can't give him a story, he's not going to be bored. I'll tell you that much. And so I find that interesting. And sometimes he's seen as is exploiting other characters for his benefit, right? He's seen so selfish or crude, but he's funny, right? I remember even as a kid, there's a story about him tricking the lion to be able to get the lion's balls, right? And see this image of a spider walking around with lion's balls, right? Before a lion stuck with that of the spider. Right? I mean, it's funny, but his tricks do get him in trouble. And some of his stories have to do with he gets himself in these situations. The lessons to be learned from this, Anansi is somebody that is able to use his cleverness in his stories to get him a little bit closer to what he really wants. And then he gets a little bit of power and then he misuses it and screws himself. And so sometimes where we see him, he's not necessarily someone worth vilifying, someone like, dude, yes, you're clever. Kick ass, use it. Just stop getting yourself like this close and then messing it up, man. And we all experience some level of that, right? Where we use the skills we have to get something, and then our cockiness takes it away from us. Or the fact that we're so excited that we finally got something. But I think what's interesting is in Anansi, what makes him a powerful figure here is he doesn't use that trickery because he's a jerk, right? I mean, that's not why he's vilified. He's got his faults, but he does that because it's the last card he's got left to play. When someone has been completely and utterly oppressed and there is no other way. How do you navigate that? How do you have hope in a dehumanizing position? And Anansi gives that. It's kind of clever. So if you found this interesting and you want to talk more about this, please leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts on Aunt Nancy, on Anansi. I'd love to hear other interpretations. I'd love to hear other perspectives. I'd love to have just open and interesting conversation. Every Wednesday, posting mythology and folklore videos, but throughout the week, there's a video Monday through Friday, ranging from stories and literature, theory, and philosophy. If I did this YouTube stuff correctly in the top left, you should see another video that might interest you, and you should see a chance to subscribe. If you do that, you can see all the content. You know, really, I'm just trying to figure this stuff out, and if somebody else wants to be a part of the journey, I'm really, really glad to have you. So I hope to see you tomorrow, or at the very least next week.